All right, everyone, how are you? Welcome to this week's episode of our podcast. It's called Is Breakfast Included? Thanks for stopping by. On the show this week, we talk with guitar player and singer Patrick Kennison. Patrick is a Dallas-based guitar player originally from San Antonio, Texas. He co-founded the band The Union Underground, which he had a lot of great stories about getting signed and touring the world. He also fronts his own band, Heaven Below, and plays lead guitar currently for Lita Ford. We had a lot of fun catching up with him. He talked about his early days in San Antonio, getting signed, and to what he's doing now. He also told us what he likes for breakfast. It was a lot of fun sitting down and catching up with Patrick. Let's check it out. Tell everyone who you are.
Boy, I ask myself that every day. Let me see. I'm the guitar player for Lita Ford. I've been doing that for 10 years, last August. I also front my own band called Heaven Below. And my wife is Nikki from the Iron Maidens, who's a great solo artist and is also in Heaven Below. And let's see, back in the day, like 20 years ago, I formed a band called Union Underground that a lot of people know. And I guess that was my foray into this whole madness. And I guess I'm like a cockroach. I don't die. I just keep going no matter what the music industry does. I keep going.
Right on. Well, tell everyone your name too.
Yeah. My name's Patrick Kennison.
Right on, Patrick.
Yeah.
Patrick, man, you said everything right off the bat. We're done here.
When did you start playing?
I started playing guitar when I was 11 or 12 years old. It'll give away my age. When I started playing guitar, the newest album was probably Judas Priest, Screaming for Vengeance, Motley Crue, Shout at the Devil. So that must have been 82 or 83. That's when I started. I come from a huge Irish Mexican family, and my brother played guitar. There was a lot of music in the house. So when I couldn't play sports or get good grades, the guitar was definitely the pick of destiny at the time.
Right on. Cool. Who were you listening to around that time? Was it like Motley Crue and with the bands you mentioned?
Yeah, my older brothers and sisters were playing Zeppelin, AC/DC, Aerosmith, Kiss. And at some point in the 80s, as the 80s got in, I started discovering my own bands. Like Accept and Metallica and, stuff like that. But I really remember getting out of the crib in the 70s, mid 70s, and hearing, hey, mama said the way you move, gonna make it sweat. I remember hearing that, probably right getting out of diapers. So it started early.
Right on. So you did come from a musical background, a lot of music being played.
Absolutely. My brother played guitar, but he loved smoking weed. So when he was smoking weed, I would get on his guitar.
Nice.
So you grew up in San Antonio.
Yep. Born and raised.
What was it like growing up? Because San Antonio, man, has a huge Tejano scene, but if you're not from Texas, you don't realize the rock scene in San Antonio either. So how did that influence your musical styles, your taste?
Oh, greatly. They used to call San Antonio the heavy metal capital. And I just assumed everywhere was like that. I remember Ozzy peeing on the Alamo when I was in grade school. My brother went to the show and I told my mom, I got to go to the Ozzy show. She said, nope, people smoke pot there. You're not going to that show. So I didn't get to go to shows till a few years later. But we had a very legendary disc jockey named Joe Anthony that was the first to play Judas Priest, Def Leppard, Accept, Rush. He was known to break these bands in San Antonio, and I didn't know till later the influence that he had. I remember hearing Accept's Fast as a Shark, and I recorded it with my handheld tape recorder, and I listened to that probably a million times and thought, man, I want to play my guitar fast like that, and I did learn how to play Fast as a Shark. But those were the moments outside of my family that shaped me to go, oh my God, there's people out there making music that must be from another planet if it sounds like this. And then I got a little older and just kept running with it. It's once you get on an instrument and everybody goes, wow, you're playing Eruption note for note, you start to go, oh crap, I think maybe I'm on to something. So you just stay with it.
Yeah. And what was the first band you formed or joined?
Oh, I had an early band called Vengeance, but it was spelt Gentz because the rhythm section, their last name was Gents. I still talk to these guys today. They still do music stuff. We had a band called Vengeance. We played covers from Def Leppard to, oh God, everything at the time. And we had our own original music. And we did draw people to concerts we played, but our parents would have to take us because we were underage. We were in our teens, so we would play the clubs and then mom would take us home. And that was my first band. And we had a killer drummer. I remember thinking, wow, this guy plays drums so great. I really better make sure my guitar is great too.
Yeah.
And that was my first thing with anyone else, jamming with them.
Yeah. And this was in the mid to late 80s, yeah?
Yep, that was the mid to late 80s.
Yeah.
Underage, but still making music.
Who were the bands? Who were the bands coming up in San Antonio right around then?
We had a local band called Presence with a Z instead of an S. And that guy, Joe Anthony, that huge DJ, would play them. We were all convinced that they would be the next big band, but somehow they never got past the local thing. Later on, I had a band with a guy named Robert Wagner. His father was Dick Wagner from Alice Cooper that wrote Only Women Bleed and all these songs. And I would go to Robert's house and his father would come and help us write the songs. And I would see the platinum records and everything. And I thought, oh my gosh, this guy really knows what he's doing. He would come into the room and say, okay, that part you're singing right there, change it to this. And that part you're playing, don't do that till later or earlier. And I remember thinking, I have a real rock star showing me how to write the songs. And I always think of him to this day. Sometimes when I'm writing, I say, what would Dick Wagner say to do right here? And it's funny because the Dick Wagner thing leads into the Lita Ford because she covered Only Women Bleed, which we play today. And I love telling Lita, I tell Lita, I said, I used to go to Dick Wagner's house and he would show me how to write the songs.
That's amazing, though. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit about forming the Union Underground?
Yeah, some point in the 90s, once we finally turned 21, me and my high school buddy, we were the shred guitar players. We loved Racer X. We loved Marty Friedman and Cacophony. But we realized we wanted to have songs that other people could listen to and maybe be on the radio. So we started a recording studio just for ourselves called the Studio Underground. We would record ourselves. We had a drum machine and things like Ministry and Nine Inch Nails were sounding so cool. We thought, man, we need a sound like that, but with a song that people remember, whatever the case. And we started to have songs that started to sound pretty good. And we said, oh, I think our band is called the Union Underground, not Studio Underground, like our place. And we developed a local following. And there was record companies back then towards the end of the 90s. And we played for no less than 7 of those record companies, 6 of which told us we were good, but not ready. And then the last one we played for was Sony Columbia, and they signed us with a famous guy that brings bands back. His name's John Kolodner. He had a beard and he brought Aerosmith back. He showed up to a gig we played, and we had sold out the club, and it was a huge night. And I thought, well, we've already played for 6 labels that said no. This guy's going to tell us the same crap. Boy, was I wrong. They signed us. We got the biggest check I'd ever seen with 6 figures. And it was pretty surreal being in your 20s and somebody wants to take a chance on your band. But looking back, I guess we had done a lot of preparation for that, from having our own studio and programming the drums and writing the songs until it rocked. I remember us saying, let's be honest with ourselves. Does it rock or does it really rock? And and that's how we ended up coming up with the songs that got us signed, I think.
Yeah. I always dug South Texas Death Ride. That was on constant play in my car when I was
That's so
getting ready.
awesome. I'll tell you a funny quick story. We got signed, we had the songs, and we were in a famous studio in Hollywood. Our neighbors at our apartments was Papa Roach, and Papa Roach was also the band next door, and we shared a lounge with Papa Roach. And Static X video came on MTV, and it was for Push It, and the name of the album was Wisconsin Death Trip. And I joked to my singer, I said, man, we should do like a South Texas Death Ride. We should call our album that. And the producer, who's a famous producer, said, oh, y'all should do that. We wrote that song on the spot after making a joke about the Static X title, and it
Yeah.
became South Texas Death Ride.
Yeah. Who produced that first album?
That Sony Columbia was produced. What was his name? Don Gilmore. He was famous for the Lit album. He was famous for working on Pearl Jam's 10 as an engineer. And he was not our first choice, but he wasn't the huge Linkin Park guy yet because he did that right after us. But I remember him showing up with a clipboard, and he started going through the songs and saying, "Okay." He was like Dick Wagner. He goes, "Okay, oh, that one thing. Yep, that's really cool. Can we do that 2 times?" And then he'd say, "Oh, this part here, it's not as good as the rest of your song. Can we just kind of scratch that part?" And instead of being guarded like we are sometimes, we thought, oh, this guy, this is like a Dick Wagner. This guy's it's gonna come out sounding great, and
Yeah.
it did. So that was that.
Did you feel like that experience with Dick coming up made you a little more open-minded to listen to someone with experience doing this, working with bands?
Definitely, because as an artist, your first thing is I'm guarded. This is the holy grail. This is my song I wrote about that time, and I have this riff, and then it goes into that. You have to let that go if you want it to be better. And yeah, you have to listen to a Dick Wagner or a Don Gilmore, or a Mutt Lange for Def Leppard or whoever.
Yeah.
You have to. These people are connected to you, but they're not trying to please you. They're trying to make your work better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, in just as many ways as their name's on the chopping block too. If you don't work out, they're like, well,
Exactly. And then you see how much you have to pay them and how much they made. And you're like, wow, he sure got paid well to tell me how to fix my song.
man, that album came out and it came out to a lot of great reviews. It sold well. Why did the band not work out? Was it because you guys were young or?
It was, I used to always say it was VH1 behind the music and all of the cliches. The singer and as I don't want to throw anybody under the bus too bad. As it got further and you start to get more than one six-figure check, some people will change their personality. I like to tell my friends today, imagine if that guy had 6 figures in his bank account right now, which isn't a lot in the scheme of the world, but it's a lot for us. Would they change? And usually the answer is yes, they would change. So we got hit with a lot of the cliches. We were doing cocaine with Marilyn Manson on the tour with him. We had managers telling us who the talented people were in the band and who was expendable. All
Yeah.
those awful cliches that can work on 20-something-year-old people's minds.
Yeah.
And I'd had enough of that personally. And when it started affecting finances, you start to go, oh man, this is bad. Now it feels like we need Doge in here.
That efficiency.
Yes. Yeah.
Uh, since Union Underground to Heaven Below, how is your sound evolved?
For me, and it sounds self-serving, and I'm not trying to be egotistical. I was angry by the end of Union Underground with me. It felt like it had a lot of provisions and walls around it. it was pandering to no guitar solos at the time. It was pandering to a song has to start with this and then it does that. And I've always liked bands, and I don't want to sound like these bands, but bands like Rush, Cheap Trick, Judas Priest, even Avenged Sevenfold as of late. You can't have too many boundaries because all your food will taste the same. You have to expand it. So I made sure with Heaven Below, it could have fast double bass. It could have a little string section. It could have vocal harmonies. It could have songs in diminished or major keys. And not that I'm trying to be Frank Zappa, because that's too weird, but I had to, yeah, the canvas had to be wider. And Union Underground, because of some people, it felt like it was too closed in. I'm like, I have to write with these parameters. No, if I'm going to cook a meal, I want to drop in whatever spices I want.
Yeah.
Do you approach playing in someone else's band differently than when you're fronting your own?
Absolutely. In some ways, yes. I can't show up to Lita Ford and tell her how everything's going to go. Uh, so you have to take that position of how can I make your thing better? What can I do to facilitate your sound? And that's what I do with Lita. Everybody asks me about getting the Lita Ford gig. And of course, guitar playing is so important. But one of the people in her band said, "Hey, if you really want the gig, you're a good singer. Why don't you learn all the harmonies on her songs? Every song has a vocal harmony." And so that's exactly what I did. I went in there and made sure I knew the high harmony or the low one, whatever the song needed. And that day I tried out for her, she kept looking at me during the song, and it made me self-conscious. I'm like, did I hit a bad note? Turns out she was loving all the harmonies, and I think that's what helped me get that gig. She goes, "You know all those harmonies?" And I said, "Oh yeah, I love Alice in Chains, Dirt. That was my Bible. I learned how to harmonize by singing along to all the harmonies on Dirt." And you do it enough, you start to be able to harmonize with most bands you play with.
That's cool.
Right on, man.
Yeah.
That is a great album for harmonies. And to hear that story of Jerry Cantrell, that he pulled a lot of that from Elton John, his love for Elton John, those harmonies.
That's so cool. But yeah, because the 80s had harmonies, but they were these high, not goofy harmonies, but high kind of, the Bon Jovi and the Rat. Man, when the 90s hit, I heard harmonies in a different way that I hadn't heard yet. And I was like, oh, harmonies aren't happy. Harmonies can be nasty, dirty, and sad and unforgiving. So yeah, that's when we do that.
Around 2011, you did a stint with Janie Lane.
Yep.
What was that? Were you close with Janie? What was that like? It was also the year he passed away.
Yeah, his manager, I had a connection to his manager. Same thing. His manager said, "Oh, you do great harmonies. I should hook you and Janie up together." And he did, and I got along great with Janie. Janie came to my apartment in Los Angeles, and he sat down with an acoustic with me, and he was showing me how he wrote stuff. And I was, once again, Dick Wagner style, I was blown away by this guy.
Yeah.
And then he said, "You should come do some shows with me." And I showed him what I kind of knew from Warrant. And then he even showed me, "Oh, this is a little different. This actually, I wrote it like this."
Yeah.
And he was an amazing talent, maybe almost too talented. I mean, the guy could write a song on an acoustic guitar in front of you anywhere at any time. But he had these demons. And I remember one of our shows thinking, Jekyll and Hyde. Who is he? Well, that's not the same guy that was at my apartment.
Yeah.
And God rest his soul. I guess he kind of had demons that took him down. I don't know. I don't know if that has to come along with somebody who's talented. I sometimes say maybe I need more demons so I can have more talent. But that's probably.
But you actually hit the nail on the head, because I'm not saying Warrant wasn't a good band. They were a good band for the time that, for the music they wrote, but that guy was just super talented. I mean, his songwriting was so much superior than that band allowed him to be.
I learned so much just from him playing guitar in front of me on an acoustic. I learned so much. Yeah.
So your wife, Nikki Stringfield plays for the Iron Maidens, but you've collaborated with her in your band Heaven Below, and you've guys done this live in the living room. How
Yeah,
did
we
that?
have some. Yeah, we started playing together when she joined Heaven Below. We were not together, and I thought, wow, she's so beautiful and talented. Let me go ahead and not be the creepy guy like every other guy is to her. So we became great friends, and it's a very hallmark heavy metal movie story where the people we're dating are talking to each other, and her and I are talking about songs, talking about what we want to do with our lives and our music. And so by the time we both ended up single, it there was no way that us two weren't going to be together. And I remember the first time she stayed over at my house, we woke up and she had an acoustic guitar and was playing like Iron Maiden while she made us coffee. And I always talked to my grandma that always said I was going to be famous. I was like, Grandma, did you send this woman to me? Because this is weird.
Yeah.
Uh, and of course, the rest is history. We ended up getting married, and here we are now.
Yeah.
I don't know. I wonder if our fate is written for each one of us. It makes you wonder weird stuff like that.
Yeah.
I say it's I say my nana is the one that put me with my wife.
I'm a firm believer in everything crosses path, you know?
You just have to let it happen, right? People, if you choke it, it's like sand through your fingers. You just have to let it happen.
Yeah. It's up
Is
to
there,
you to make it happen. Let
Yep.
me ask
is,
you a personal question. This is just for me. Like when you and Nikki argue, do you guys just fucking cut heads and play guitars? Yeah, like
Let me say,
that's a crossroads reference. My
let me say it like this. I was very lucky. My parents loved each other. They were together 60 something years before they passed. When my parents would argue, they never raised their voices. You had to look at how they were looking at each other. And I feel like Nikki and I are the same way. We don't scream or yell. We can tell by the eyes.
yeah,
And then I'm like, oh shit, okay, I got the
yeah.
look. So no, and musically, well, we get along amazingly. I don't want to make everybody sick. Musically, we have a lot of the same things, but sometimes she pulls the Don Gilmore, Dick Wagner on me and says, that's really cool, but why don't you do this? And we'll do that to each other.
Right
And then
on.
we're guarded. Yeah, but I wrote it like this. Yeah, but I promise it's going to be better like this.
nice.
So what you've got this the live in the living room. What inspired that?
That was because the pandemic showed up. We had a huge tour with Alice Cooper. The Maidens had all kinds of dates, and it all got killed by the great pandemic, the terrible pandemic. And so we started just playing on our couch with the acoustics. Like I said, when Nikki would wake me up with coffee and acoustic, uh, we did a version of Aces High unplugged on our couch with the dog on there. Everybody loved the dog. And the video got crazy. I don't want to say it's viral. It got insane views and attention. So we just kept going with it. We covered Avenged Sevenfold's Backcountry. We said no coffee house things. We're not doing Neil Young. We're not doing, Stevie Nicks or whatever. Let's do metal songs. And I remember we did Backcountry from Avenged, and Avenged shared it on their social media. And I was like, what? And so it just blossomed into something where we said, let's do a whole CD of this live in the living room. And people liked it. We threw some Union Underground stuff in there, some of Nikki's original stuff. We just mixed it all up, and we didn't Pro Tools it or make it fake. It was just like a looper pedal and our vocals and the guitars. And I think people appreciated that it was raw, not this glossy Pro Tools record.
Can you give us a sneak peek into the upcoming Ghost Notes EP?
Okay, Ghost Notes is out. That's still new. That came out for the Marty Friedman tour we just did.
Oh, okay.
Uh, um, Crazy response from that, especially on the road. Same thing. It wasn't as raw as the live in the living room couch. We went ahead and set up our fancy microphones in our studio, some in here, and we just took the songs and retooled them to be unplugged, both Heaven Below songs and some of Nikki's solo stuff. We didn't want to do covers on Ghost Notes. We wanted it to be its own vibe. And yeah, we like taking songs apart. The 90s MTV Unplugged was a huge influence on me. I remember watching Alice in Chains, even the Kiss Unplugged and STP, and I thought, man, I want to be able to play acoustic and not have it be some lame coffee house thing. I want it to rock like the way these guys do. So that's the influence on stuff like that. Go ahead and put big drum kit, but put an acoustic. Don't make the vocals all auto-tuned and fake and phony. And you do it enough times, it starts to sound good. And so we didn't come out of the gate with it sounding great. We have to, sometimes music's mysterious. You got to keep retrying. Other times, the first time is the best time.
Yeah.
So that's kind of where the Ghost Notes is.
Do you have a favorite guitar or piece of gear that you swear by?
Nikki and I are so blessed. Both of us have our own signature guitars that you can buy at Guitar Center and across the country. I'm going to grab mine. Hold on.
Nice.
And I have my own guitar called the Apocrypha.
Ooh.
And it has my tattoo in the inlays. That's my tattoo right there.
Right on.
And it's pretty crazy. I just gave one to Robin Zander of Cheap Trick
I
as
saw
a
that.
gift because he gifted me his guitar years ago. So I try to listen to life circles. And when this happened, I thought, I got to give one to Robin. He gave me his guitar.
That's so cool.
Thank you.
It is beautiful too.
Thank you.
Did you ever, growing up, did you ever think you'd have your signature guitar? That's a big deal for every guitar player.
No, I had written it off because Union Underground started having success. And there was talk back then of my BC Rich endorsement, me doing a signature guitar, but BC Rich had a lot of changes in the staff and the ownership. It never happened. So I wrote it off. I thought, I'll get a signature guitar if I can ever be as big as Jerry Cantrell or somebody. Lo and behold, life has other plans, probably my Nana again. Schecter wanted to do a signature guitar for me. And I'm like, what planet? What's going on? Is this real life? And I just ran with it. I didn't question it. I just went with what I would want to play. And with the support from the Schecter people, I thought, this is great. So I just ran with it.
Right on. Does your brother still play guitar?
He does a little bit. Yeah, he just messes around with chords. He's too smart making real money in a real job.
How do you and Nikki balance your personal and professional life? But first of all, being in a band together, her doing her thing with the Iron Maidens, you doing your thing. How do you guys balance that?
We have different calendars, dry erase boards in the house. We have our master tour on our phone. The scheduling is the hard part. It's only taken many decades, but I realize now you have to schedule things. It doesn't matter how many great riffs you think you have. You better have somewhere on a phone or on a dry erase board. And that's how we kind of get it to work. And now I'm starting to sound like my father. I'm realizing that time is the most precious thing we have. Money will come and go. Everything will come and go. Time is this weird construct that goes away and never comes back. So we schedule the shit out of stuff, just the hell out of it. We'll say this weekend in October is open. Can we do this show, or are we working on this album? And it's all scheduling. And I never wanted to be a scheduler, but man, if you don't, you'll screw up what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
I find that's the hardest part of my life. I'm not a good scheduler.
Same. It's taken a lot for me to finally kind of start to be good.
How do you how do you define success now versus when you were first starting out?
Yeah, that's a real good question. I think success means that you love what you're doing and you can do more of it. I used to be one of those people that said it's all about the music. Oh boy, doesn't that sound so noble? It's all about the music. Now I realize if you don't have finances rolling or you're not making money from your music, you won't make any more music. So that's a good way to look at it. So once again, like the scheduling, it's taken decades. If you can start putting finances up with it's all about the music, you'll get to make more music. And that's the only not the only reason, but that's one of the reasons we can do it, because we say things like, what is our margin of profit? We'll say things like that. And when we can do pre-sales of an album and we don't even pull money out of our bank account to get the production started, the pre-sales more than cover it. That's when I usually say, that's my Nana again, probably making sure I can make more music. And that's when we say, holy crap. I tell Nikki all the time, record labels can go to hell. We're paying for this without having to go to the record label bank.
Yeah.
I've already made 58 cents per album on Sony Music, which was, we had to fight to get that amount of money. So it's nice to be able to sell thousands of records and make so much more money than making a little tiny sliver of a huge pie.
Yeah, that's a good feeling when you own it, right?
Absolutely. I've already been through that other stuff in my 20s. It was like the labels they had money back then, but then they say, okay, you sold 500,000 albums. You only owe us $1.2 million. So we'll get it on the next one.
Oh man.
If you weren't playing guitar for a living, like what was there anything else you wanted to do when you were coming up?
I've recently accidentally kind of become a graphic designer with our new Heaven Below stuff. And I always loved that graphic design stuff, but I was scared of the computer end of it. I guess I would be doing that if I didn't do music. And I'm a crazy animal activist, I guess is the right word, with my wife.
Oh.
The things that stir my soul outside of music would definitely be maybe graphic design, probably helping animals and stuff, things of that nature. I think those are the two that are close outside of music.
Right on, man.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I don't know nothing about graphic design.
Don't get into it. It's like music, but it's just as hard.
What do you got next coming up for you?
I take off with Lita this weekend. We do some shows and we're playing with Dee Snider. Dee Snider gets on stage with us at the end of the night and we do some Twisted Sister stuff. All of us, Lita's band. So I need to go over my Twisted Sister songs, which is funny because those were some of the first ones I ever learned also.
Yeah.
And I'm excited about that. And then we go to Europe a lot with Lita this summer. And somehow in there, we're going to drop that new Heaven Below album this summer at the same time. And
Nice.
Nikki, of course, is out with the Maidens. And once again, the weekend in October, we're looking at all the schedules for everything. So I'm gonna somehow schedule all that.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's great.
Well, where can people find you online, Patrick?
I'm really active on the social medias, of course. Facebook, Heaven Below Music. I am the Patrick Kennison on Instagram. Nikki is on Instagram as also. We're Facebook, Instagram people. I'm resilient against this TikTok stuff because I don't want to be on TikTok, but everybody says your music has to be there. And of course, we have our .coms, the heavenbelow.com, the Nikki-Stringfield.com. We're pretty active on there. We would be more, but man, we're busy making music and touring. So I'm proud to say that we can't always do stuff because we're trying to live reality too.
Yeah, I think the Maidens were just here in New York a few days
Yeah,
ago.
that's right. Yeah.
I saw that they had done a show there. So
Yeah.
well, man, we appreciate you taking time to do this. I know you didn't know us at all, and we just we cold called you. That we
You got good
appreciate.
association though with Mike and everybody.
Mike's a great guy, isn't he?
Yeah.
I've known that guy longer than I've known my son.
Wow.
It could be a good thing,
Yeah.
you know, or a bad thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've done some time together, he and I.
Hell
But
yeah.
uh, man, we appreciate you taking time to do this, dude. We wish you all the luck with Lita. We'd love to catch you next time you're up here in this area. We're
You
up
hit
here.
me up and I'll make it happen.
Right on, man. Our podcast is called Is Breakfast Included? And if we're having breakfast, what would you have?
Lately I've been eating omelets. I love like those veggie omelets and the Denver omelet. I've been doing that. We just did the Monsters Rock cruise, and that's what I ate every morning was the vegetable or the Denver omelet.
Cool.
Right on, Patrick.
Coffee or anything?
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, we're coffee maniacs. Nikki and I are coffee maniacs. I just found this creamer that has Mexican chocolate that reminds me every summer when I was a little kid, my mom would take us to where she's from in Mexico. My grandma, my abuelita, would have this chocolate, and I found one that has it. So now I'm doing the Mexican grandma chocolate, and it feels like my childhood again.
What is that creamer called?
It's a Coffee Mate one. It's in the yellow thing.
Okay.
It shows the grandma picture, and it says like Mexican chocolate. It's so good.
I know exactly what you're talking about, man. So
that's what it tasted like in Mexico when I was a little kid.
Right on. Cool. Right on. Well, buddy, you have a great day, man. And thank you for your time. It was good talking to you.
Y'all too. Anything you need from me, y'all know where to find me.
Will do.
Thank you.
All right, be safe.
Right on. Patrick Kennison. What a great guy, right? Really funny. If you want to find out more about Patrick, check him out on Instagram at the Patrick Kennison. Check out Ghost Notes. It's the EP with him and his wife, Nikki Stringfield, available on all streaming services. Make sure you check it out. Support him. While you're online, check out isbreakfast.com. You can follow us on Facebook and Instagram from there. Make sure you rate and review the show on Apple Podcasts. Check out our YouTube, like and subscribe to the show. You never know who may pop up on this show, you know? And while you're there, man, buy a shirt. We need it. No, I'm joking. But no, buy a shirt for real. All right, guys, I am done. Have a great day. We'll talk to you next week.